Here's a number that should blow your mind. The total computing power used to train the most advanced AI models today is roughly 10 billion times greater than what was used just 15 years ago. That's not a typo. 10 billion times. And it's not slowing down. Right now, the biggest tech companies on the planet are spending over $650 billion this year building out AI infrastructure. That's more than the GDP of most countries. But here's the real question everyone should be asking. Can this keep going? Is there a wall? And if so, when do we hit it? Today we're going to break down exactly how compute power works, how it compares to Moore's law, where all the money is going, and what happens when the music stops. Let's get into it. Before we talk about how fast things are growing, let's make sure everyone's on the same page about what compute power actually means. At its core, AI is math, massive amounts of math. When you ask ChatGPT a question or Claude writes you an email, what's happening under the hood is billions of mathematical operations, matrix multiplications, gradient calculations, optimization steps, running across thousands of specialized processors. Compute is shorthand for the hardware capacity and processing time needed to do all that math. We measure it in something called FLOPS, floating point operations per second. One FLOP is one math operation. A teraflop is 1 trillion operations per second. Today's top AI chips can perform over 2,500 teraflops. Now there are two phases where compute matters. Training is the upfront, massively expensive phase where the AI model learns from data. This can take weeks or months running across tens of thousands of GPUs. Then, there's inference. That's when the trained model actually responds to you. Less intensive per query, but it adds up fast when millions of people are using these systems simultaneously. The key takeaway: more compute generally means more capable AI, and the race to build more compute infrastructure is the defining story of the tech industry right now. Now let's talk about Moore's law, because it's the foundation everyone references when talking about computing progress. In 1965, Gordon Moore, co-founder of Intel, observed that the number of transistors on a microchip doubled approximately every 18 to 24 months. This became known as Moore's law. It's important to understand, this is not a law of physics. It's an observation, a trend that held remarkably steady for over 50 years because the entire semiconductor industry organized itself around maintaining that pace. You can express it as a simple formula, PT, P0x2 per TD, where P0 is your starting performance, T is time in months, and D is the doubling period, typically 18 to 24 months. So after 10 years, with a 20-month doubling period, you get roughly 64 times improvement. After 15 years, about 700 times. And for decades, this held up. Chips got smaller, faster, and cheaper at this predictable rate. It's why your smartphone today has more computing power than the machines that put astronauts on the moon. The wall is coming. The wall is coming. But here's the thing. Moore's law is hitting a wall. Transistors today are around 3 nanometers in size. For reference, a silicon atom is about 0.2 nanometers. We're approaching a point where transistors are only a dozen or so atoms wide. Below about 1 nanometer, quantum effects like electron tunneling make conventional transistors unreliable. You literally can't shrink much further. Most industry experts, including people at Intel, TSMC, and Samsung, expect meaningful transistor shrinkage to effectively end by 2030 to 2035. So if the chips themselves are hitting physical limits, how is AI compute growing so much faster? This is where it gets really interesting, and this is the thing most people get wrong. Moore's law tracks what a single chip can do. It doubles every 18 to 24 months. AI compute growth tracks the total computing resources thrown at training runs, and that has been doubling every 3 to 6 months. That's anywhere from 3 to 8 times faster than Moore's law. How is that possible? Because multiple improvement drivers are stacking on top of each other simultaneously. Layer 1. Better chips. This is the Moore's law contribution, roughly 2x every 18 to 24 months. Back in 2010, NVIDIA's top GPU could do maybe 1 to 2 teraflops. Today's NVIDIA Blackwell B200 delivers around 2,500 teraflops in AI-optimized precision. That's over 1,000-fold improvement in raw chip performance. Layer 2. architectural specialization. The industry shifted from general-purpose CPUs to GPUs for AI, which gave an immediate 10 to 50x boost. Then came purpose-built AI accelerators. Google's TPUs, NVIDIA's Tensor Cores, adding another major multiplier. Layer 3, parallelism. Training clusters went from a handful of GPUs to tens of thousands running simultaneously. NVIDIA's latest supercomputers have over 70,000 GPUs working together. Layer 4, software and algorithmic efficiency. Better training methods, frameworks like PyTorch, mixed precision training. These squeeze more useful work out of each FLOP. Researchers keep finding ways to do more with less. Layer 5, money. Companies are simply spending vastly more. And that brings us to the elephant in the room. Comparison at a glance. Moore's Law. Single chip. Doubles every 18 to 24 months. AI training compute. Total. Has doubled every 3 to 6 months. That's 3x to 8x faster than Moore's Law. Think of it this way. Moore's Law is like how fast one car can go. AI compute growth is like how much total freight an entire logistics industry can move. You improve the engines and add more trucks and build better highways and optimize your routes. Each improvement multiplies the others. Now, let's talk about money, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. The hyperscaler arms race. The 5 largest US cloud and AI infrastructure providers, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Oracle, are collectively on track to spend between $660 and $690 billion on capital expenditure in 2026. That's nearly double what they spent in 2025. The vast majority is going directly into AI compute, data centers, and networking. Let me break that down by company. Amazon, $200 billion in planned 2026 capex. Alphabet, Google, $185 billion, revised upward 3 times from an initial $71 billion. Microsoft, tracking toward $120 billion or more. Meta, $115 to $135 billion. Oracle, targeting $50 billion. The global picture. Globally, total AI spending, including hardware, software, services, and everything else, hit nearly $1.5 trillion in 2025 according to Gartner. That's projected to reach $2.5 trillion in 2026. And $3.3 trillion by 2029. To put that in perspective, the entire Apollo program that put humans on the moon cost about $260 billion in today's dollars. The US interstate highway system cost roughly $600 billion adjusted. AI investment has already blown past both of those, and the spending is accelerating. The startup frenzy. It's not just the big companies. AI dominated venture capital in 2025. About 48% of all equity funding went to AI companies, even though they represented only 23% of deals. SoftBank alone invested $40 billion into OpenAI in a single round. Private AI investment in the US hit over $225 billion in 2025. And here's something that doesn't get enough attention. All this compute needs power, massive amounts of power. Microsoft signed a $1.6 billion deal to restart the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor specifically to power AI. Google and Amazon have also secured nuclear energy agreements for the same reason. This is creating a whole new demand curve in the energy sector. Data centers are now competing with entire cities for power grid access. If you work in energy infrastructure or cybersecurity compliance, think NERC CIP regulations. This is creating enormous new demand for your expertise. So here's the big question. When does the music stop? The honest answer is, different layers hit their limits at different times. Transistor shrinkage, 2030-2035. Traditional Moore's Law, making transistors smaller, is already sputtering and will likely hit hard physical limits within the next 5 to 10 years. Below about 1 nanometer, you're dealing with individual atoms, the AI compute frenzy, 3 to 7 years. The 3 to 6 month doubling pace of AI training compute was partly a one-time ramp-up effect. The industry went from nobody cares about AI training to every major tech company spending $100 billion a year on data centers in just a few years. You can only do that explosive scaling once. The next 2 to 3 years will still see aggressive growth, because massive data center build-outs are already funded and under construction. But after 2028 or so, growth will likely moderate to doubling every 12 to 18 months as the curve shifts from gold rush to normal industrial scaling. diminishing returns. There's growing evidence that simply making AI models bigger and throwing more compute at them produces less dramatic improvements than it did a few years ago. When a single training run costs $10 billion and the improvement over the last generation is only 15% better, the economic incentive to keep brute force scaling diminishes fast, but improvement won't stop entirely. When one source of improvement hits a wall, others take over. This has happened before. CPU clock speeds plateaued around 2005 at about 4 GHz, but compute kept improving through multi-core designs and GPUs. Going forward, we'll see continued gains from 3D chip stacking, new computing paradigms like optical and neuromorphic computing, and especially from software and algorithmic efficiency, which has no obvious theoretical ceiling. True stagnation, where nothing is getting meaningfully better on any front, is probably not in our lifetimes. But the era of jaw-dropping exponential leaps, that probably has 10 to 15 years left at most. So let's recap what we covered. Moore's Law gave us 50 years of predictable chip improvement, doubling every 18 to 24 months. It's slowing down and will hit physical limits within the next decade. AI compute growth has been dramatically faster, doubling every 3 to 6 months. But that's driven by stacking multiple improvement layers, not just better chips. It's fueled by unprecedented investment, over $2.5 trillion globally in 2026. The current pace is unsustainable, not because technology is failing, but because the economics of infinite scaling eventually run into reality. The industry will shift from make it bigger to make it smarter, more efficiency, better algorithms, specialized solutions. For those of us in cybersecurity, in energy compliance, in IT infrastructure, this isn't just interesting trivia. This is the landscape that's creating enormous demand for our skills. More data centers mean more attack surfaces. More power demand means more critical infrastructure to protect. More AI deployment means more compliance requirements. Understanding the compute landscape isn't optional anymore. It's the foundation of everything that's coming next. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out more content on cybersecurity, compliance, and how emerging tech is reshaping the threat landscape. Drop a comment below and tell me, what aspect of AI compute are you most concerned about? I'll see you in the next one.